everyone. Welcome to the Shamans Cave. I'm Sandra Ingerman.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, coming to you from Palm Springs, where the temperatures have now dipped below 100 consistently. So we're heading towards winter.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm a happy camper with the lowering temperatures, and I know that people are wishing they were going back up. We're all unique beings, and so that's something that we all have to recognize, our own uniqueness. When Renee and I give advice, it's, well, does it match for you? And that goes perfectly into our next show on making choices. But before I go into that, I thought it would be really nice, because Renee has been planting these wonderful seeds for people to be sharing a bit more on the Shaman's Cave. So I thought that something that would be really beautiful for us to see is, how do you create sacred space in the place where you work? You can create sacred space in an office. You can create sacred space in a park that you go to by building a little cairn, or putting stones in a particular way so that you always have your little sacred space that's away from the public. Some of you build altars at your house or put fountains out to create sacred space. Sacred space is really important so that we keep that line of connection going between our divine self and the transcendent realms. Unless we have that strong connection, we're not going to manifest what we're putting out in our ceremonies and what we're putting out in our work. And so it's really important to create sacred space, because sacred space makes us step in to a good relationship with the divine.
It sure does. I had a gardener recently, and I have a little altar by my fire pit out in the yard. And I come home, and the lawn furniture is in the middle of my altar. And I was there like, hey, that's that's my little altar. And the weirdest thing is, when I brought it up, the gardener quit and never came back ever since. It was this I was like, well, that was one way to get rid of you. And he was just, there was I have my little, like you do, I have my little sacred spots out in the front with the Buddha fountain, and how we tend to those, and to our bird feeders. And, they're all sacred places. And that if you don't have those set up for yourself, they're markers from when you move from, the mundane into the magical. And they remind you of that on a daily basis. For me, I know, and I'm sure for you, Sandra, as well. But that these are the portals in. When you go to old places in Peru, you find out, like, the rocks with the holes in them. These are the portals that people went into. Or when you're up at the wind caves and things, that they've grown in potentiality over the years by people going to these spots and praying on them, like a Sundance. Year after year, the energy builds, and we have to build these power places for our own selves as well, in our families.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking on the last show that we did about how I've been doing the same journey for like 30 years, but every time I repeat certain exercises, I go so much deeper. And so, as Renee was talking about sacred space and how deep we can go in the portals that it takes us into, I was reminded of that too, is that when you use the same sacred space, you end up going deeper into your work,
Mm.
because you can only imagine when you're always, oh, where should I journey today? Where should I do my ceremony today? Where should I sit and meditate? You're all distracted. But when you're like a beeline to your great space, you just drop in. And so we would love to see what your sacred spaces look like on the Shaman's Cave wall. If so, we thought that we talk about that before we jump into our show, which actually this topic transitions into it of how we make choices in life.
I think I was thinking of that. It's like, my deck of soul cards have become their own altar. They have their, somebody says, well, how do you know that that's what it means? I'm thinking, well, because I've been using these cards now for 25 years. And this is the meaning that has been revealed to me over and over and over again, and so it doesn't necessarily, my altar doesn't have to look like your altar. And yet I need to care for the things that are a part of that altar and show them that they're sacred. I think it was Judith Orloff once who said that, the more you go to your altar every single day, there's this energy that you keep adding in there. And I just remembered her saying that, and it was like, wow, yeah. So that the universe knows that you're there to pray,
Yeah,
because you show up. Oh, this is the time I get to talk to Sandra. Yay. Probably, especially for hard-headed people like me. Like, some people are in and out of that space more often, but it's like when I move into that space, it's like, oh, we got our attention.
right. Yeah, my office, um, I I live in a very strange house, and my office is kind of underground, and it's split into two different parts, which works out pretty well. But when I started doing online things, I had to put my computer somewhere, and it turned out that the best place to put my computer is where I see clients. And this became very tricky for me because I've been living in this house for 25 years. And when I walk into my office, if I'm mad at anybody before I walked into my office, I let it go before I don't think about it. This is just an automatic. I can't, this is a holy place. I made this office over the years of seeing clients and having miracles and crying over people's deaths and praying at my altar. This holds an energy, and I don't want to break it by now coming in and being mad about what somebody said to me, and I don't want to be on Zoom today or whatever. So it's training for me that when I walk into my office, that I shift into a spiritual state of consciousness, and whatever happens on Zoom is part of that because I created sacred space. So every activity now, where I only did certain activities in my office, every activity has become more spiritual because I have to. I have all these Egyptian statues staring at me that I got in Egypt as gifts from Egyptians. And they're looking at me, and I need to do my work.
Absolutely. Since I live alone, my whole house can tend to be that kind of a sacred space for me. And then one time people come in here, oh my God, the energy feels so great here. And, we keep it pretty, between me and the cat, we keep it pretty quiet here, because it's like being called to be of service out in the world is a very demanding job. And I mean a job in the way of, like, you don't get to pick and choose. And so, you do get to pick and choose, but there's just certain, if you're really in tune to what spirit's wanting you to do, you're more of a servant than you are, you go where you're called. And sometimes that's a little inconvenient. So if you have like a nice place where you can regroup yourself, then that's great. In fact, before I went up north, my office was a disaster zone. And I was told, no, you need to make this a sacred space for you, even within the rest of the space, because you do Zoom over here, but you need to and create another little place that's even more for you. And it's like, okay, all right, I hear you. So I sold the desk, got rid of a lot of stuff, and now it's ready to be reformed.
Ooh, nice. I like
Mm-hmm.
that stage. That's a great stage, because that's when you can bring in also how you've changed and the new you, and it's like having a new photo done.
Exactly. That's how it feels over there. Oh, this feels different.
Yeah.
This feels real. And it's like now my desk overlooks the Buddha fountain,
Wow.
and it's like, oh yeah, I can write the next book from here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. I'm glad you like it. So we were talking about difficult decisions, and there's always decisions to make. And right now there's a lot of extra difficult decisions out there. So how do you decide? How do you, and I think Sandra's point of starting at your sacred altar is a great place to start to make a decision, so that we get out from this is my decision to what does Creator want for me today? Because our will really is really something. I was helping somebody recently. They're looking at sperm donors, and I thought, like, well, where's God in this? Where is God in this? So, and I say that, where is God in your life helping you make decisions? And you can call God whatever you want, but that was just my initial reaction to that, is like, do we get to pick everything?
That's a really good question, because we don't. I can tell you, I have not. Um, yeah, and I think that's one of the traps for people entering into any spiritual path, not just shamanism, is in our culture. I think because we're used to being given medicine when we go to a doctor, we're used to, like, you know, we used to make fun of my parents all the time, because my parents lived way into their 90s. And so when they went to the doctor couldn't help them. How do you help a person who's 97 years old? And so my parents were always complaining, they're worthless. They're worthless, you know.
That's funny.
And now I'm complaining. I'm only 60.
Yeah, but see, you got, if they live to 97, you're with me for these next 30 years, Sandra. So we need some new topics for our show.
So anyway, now I'm saying, oh, they're worthless. But there was a point that I was trying to make in all of this is we come into a spiritual path oftentimes because we want to feel safe and because we want healing. And that safety and that healing does come. It really does come, but it doesn't always come in the ways that we want it, and it doesn't come in the timeline that we want it. And so a lot of people are rejecting spiritual practices now because they're saying it's woo-woo work. How do you know it works? What's the scientific basis to all of this? I keep on saying, well, people have been doing this for 100,000 years and it works. Why do we have to have a statistical study? I just can't get it. I'm sorry, I can't get when something's worked for 100,000 years that we need a statistical study now.
There are some, though. Now, I've been doing research for my new book, and I have started to do a lot more studies peer group studies on shamanism.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, I know that, and I'm on a site that's always trying to get me to remark on something, and I just can't take on any more work. And so, you know, we want everything in the way that we want it, and we want it in our timeline, and shamanism doesn't work like that, because it's looking at karma, ancestral patterns. What do you need right now in your life that your soul is calling for, that your ego doesn't want, but doesn't understand the deep growth that you'll get through it. You know, because I'm in a challenged place physically, and I keep saying that. And I, I can't read books right now, but I can hear about them, and I can hear about some of the messages, and some of the messages of people who have gone through some of the most unbelievable things was, and it's interesting because I've heard this in 3 different places now from 3 very famous people who went through hellish illnesses, was the miracle was always in the worst part. There, and I would have missed the miracles the universe was giving me in my hardest times, because I was always trying to look for the cure or for safety. I missed the actual miracle that was brought into my life. And so that gave me a whole different perspective on everything that happens in our life actually is a miracle, but we don't always recognize it because the miracle might come with pain. Um, and we run from pain.
absolutely. I've been house hunting in a seller's market. And, you know, every time I put in an offer, I'd say, this or something better, this or something better. And, you know, and when you turn it over that way, you feel like there's a little bit like, okay, well, if it's not supposed to be, it's not going to happen type of, and it doesn't mean you don't do the footwork. It means you do the footwork up to the place where there's this place that I like to call the gap, where spirit can intercede. But if you're not doing the footwork, you're back here, and the moment of being able to bring that miracle together is up here, because you might have given up doing the footwork. So I don't ever underestimate the power of the footwork.
Right, right,
And that's where people, they want the miracle with no footwork.
right. There has to be the pilgrimage, you know, and that's part of, you know, I always like to bring things back to shamanism, but I also always like to educate people that most of the beliefs in shamanism are the same beliefs in every spiritual tradition. There are core teachings that are just the same in every tradition, and how to live life. We've already been given that information, and we've already been given those breadcrumbs. And we did a show on following your intuition, which is important in, like, with decisions that Renee has to make right now in looking at houses. But when we're ready, there's actually a very, very powerful middle world journey that we could, that I'd love to teach you how to do. It's really simple. Anybody can do this. And in my work, I'm just saying for me, it's been 100% accurate. And there's nothing in shamanism that has been 100% accurate for me.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait.
Are we ready?
Yeah, my soul cards are pretty accurate too. You know, people all say, you know, you told me. but it's just like, it's how can you also go in for your own, your own understanding is that's the real goal now. Like I say, the guru's dead. We have to be able to start to find our answers inside.
Absolutely. It's all inside. We're this incredible reflection of the creator. And um, a voice told me 20 years ago in the middle of the night, threw me out of bed. It was so loud that man has been looking for God outside of himself for 2,000 years. Man will be looking for God inside of himself for the next 2,000 years. So we have a long journey.
Right.
So
What's
this,
2,000 years though? That's the part. If we just think it's a long time.
right. And it can go in a minute.
Right. Look at this year.
Yeah. So this journey is actually typically used for where questions, but like for Renee's situation of a house, we can look at, instead of where is the best house, we look at her different choices that she has. So many people right now, because of the environmental concerns, are looking for new places to live. So this is what this journey was actually created for, is where should I move to? Where should I live? Where's the best place? Now, again, I've talked about this journey being 100% accurate, and I've set myself up because right now there are no safe places on the planet. And what my teacher Isis says is pick a place you love and stay there and deal with the consequences, because there is no safe place on the planet right now. Just move to where you love and stay there. But for making decisions like what job should I take, what house, where's a good place for me to move to, although there's no guarantee I'm safe there. What you do is you close your eyes and you create your sacred space. This is a journey, so you're trying to get your ego out of the way. You're trying to let the creative forces come in and actually give you some direction. And so you focus on all your choices. So for Renee, she can focus on different houses that she's looking at. For some of you who are thinking about moving to another state, you could either look at the entire map of the world if you want to get overwhelmed, or if you live in the US, you could look at the map of the US. I've done this for people many times. Or you can just look at the few places that you were thinking about. You can do the same thing with a job. You can do the same thing with a vacation. You get the point, okay? So what you're looking for in the journey is, where is the sunbeam shining? Where's the sunbeam shining? So in Renee's case, what house is a sunbeam shining on? The rest are in the shadows. There's no sun there. There's only one place. And you know how the sun has the rays that come down. The rays are coming down really bright. For you're looking at the map of the United States, the sun is going to shine a ray on one place. And that's your city to move to. Same thing with a job. Where is the sun shining? And every other choice you make that you could make is in the shadows. There's no sunlight on it. So this journey is so powerful because it's showing, basically the universe is saying, the sun is shining on this decision and there's no sunlight on this decision. So you go to where the sun is shining. The universe is saying this is a great situation for you to be in. And so it's a powerful journey. And with journeys like this, that you really need to focus a bit on your intuition. You don't want to stay in too long, because then your ego is going to come in and start second guessing. Ooh, do I see a little bit of sun here? Go in, see where the sun is shining. Don't think, don't ask questions. Just where is the sun shining, and come back. So focus on your question, focus on your intention, focus on a decision that might be in your life right now that could be helped by seeing where the sun is saying this decision is a blessing for you, and where the shadows are saying stay away. So here we go. So just open your eyes and come back into your room gently. Kind of keep your eyes half opened, half closed, so the light doesn't shock you too much. And notice how you're feeling in your body as you think about where the sunlight hit for you during this journey. How was the journey for you, Renee?
Yeah, what I did was I kind of walked around the neighborhood where I was looking, and, looked at the sun came down and showed me like that there's the parcels that I'm looking at, there's two, and it kind of came down more in the center of the one where I'm thinking about building. So that's kind of feels like a pretty good omen.
Yeah, yeah. And you could do this journey again. We don't have the time to create a lot of sacred space, when we lead an exercise on the show. And so these are ideas that you can do on your own, but sometimes you have to do that preparation work to get yourself clear to where you can even see where the sun is and where your intuition is fired up to at the same time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Sandra, you bring up a good point. Like, we're giving you tools. We're not saying this is the way, the prescribed format, and because a lot of times people write to us and want us to talk about topics that both Sandra and I believe that take a course. Take my 10-month apprentice course next year, or take one of Sandra's 7-week courses, or her new group. You're not going to get everything from the show. This is like the amuse bouche, the taste. So remember that we're just here to give you a little bit of an introduction.
that's right. Yeah. We get some topics that they're beautiful topics. They're
Mm-hmm.
important topics. And we don't want to deny that we need more information on this in our culture. But as I keep saying, shamanism is tens of thousands of years old, and these methods, although they change, they have a core foundation. They change over time for the culture and for the times that we're living in, but they still have a core seed,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of the tree grew out of. And you can't share that. You cannot share that in a 20-minute show. There's just no way. So what it would mean is you getting into trouble or getting a client into trouble by just not having the information on how to help. So we really welcome your topics, we really do, but there are going to be times where I am going to say this is just not an appropriate topic for a 20-minute show. It's an appropriate topic for a long workshop, like a 5-day workshop or a weekend workshop or a year or 2-year training, or Renee's apprenticeship training or whatever. But long term, some of the questions that people are sending in, they're beautiful, but they're for long-term work.
That's true. That reminds me, I'm going to be talking about how do you manifest in a sacred wind space on November 14th, and it's called Catch Yourself on the Exhale, because in the wind work, I believe that the manifestation happens in that breath, what you're breathing into the collective. And we're going to talk about some skills that you can use to make sure that what you're exhaling into your own collective experience gets you the results you want. So it's a little bit of a wind magic class. And you can find out about that over at shamanstv.com, over at the Shamans Cave. And remember, we've asked you to show us about your sacred spaces. So you can it's a little harder to draw on YouTube. I learned you can't even upload a file, but come over to the Shamans Cave and there's plenty of room to attach, or send it in an email. We read those as well. And make sure you share the show, because people need this wisdom now, right? They really do.
They really do. Yeah. And we really enjoy doing the show. And I'm also, I'm not teaching any long-term classes in November, but I'm doing a lot of little events. So I'll post those on Shamans TV. On November 4th, I'm going to be teaching an hour-and-a-half class on shamanic journeying and giving people the experience. So I'll send those over to Shamans TV too, so you can see some other things that are short, but can start to give you some of the experience so that you can go deeper with the work that we share too.
Oh, and if you want to learn about creating sacred space in a deeper way, the Fire Tenders Gathering, the I Am Symposium is going to be the Fire Tenders Gathering this year, and we'll go through the holy days of from the winter solstice to the beginning of the New Year's by holding an intention as a group. So you can learn about that over at the Wind Clan. All
We
right.
have a lot going on.
I know we are busy.
And, you know, it's a little tricky on the show because I know Renee and we both teach classes that people sign up for and pay for. And so we're always going to be sharing important topics because there's so much that we can share beyond what we can teach in our classes too. But we also have to honor our students who did do the pilgrimage of going through making all the sacrifices they had to make in order to sign up. So we're sharing what we can here. And my philosophy is when a class is done and enough time has gone by, I start bringing some of those topics into the shaman's cave because I know there's people who can't afford classes. But it's tricky for us because we also have to honor our students who made certain sacrifices in order to learn certain information. So we'll always be bringing in new and old information. We both just have to be careful with our timing.
Right, exactly. So thank you, everyone, and stay with us because, you know, we do this because we enjoy each other, and we know that people need this information. So, you know, just stay with us.
Blessings, everybody. And I wish you a peaceful time and do your spiritual practices because they're really going to help you right now.